I was sharing with my wife the other day that I can remember the Stone Age when I was 12 or 13 years old. And I remember the moment that music started to become an important part of my life. I couldn't wait to get one of those handheld AM radios that required, I think, a 12-volt battery or not, whatever that was. Transistor, and you could actually, had a strap, you could carry it with you, have your music with you wherever you went. And I used to listen to Wolfman Jack and whoever else, I forget the others, the franchises all across the country. Well, what particularly grabbed me about that time being a young teenager was how good I felt when I heard Elvis sing or the Beatles invaded America, right? I could listen to the opening strains of The Sounds of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. I was transported into a better place where I felt more centered, more comfortable. And I dreamt of maybe someday having one of those kind of invisible bells around me where the music was playing inside my little bell and nobody else could hear it but me, but I would be this happy, centered, and grounded little teenager as I made my way through life. But now, of course, you can actually do that. You can listen to your phone that's hidden in your pocket, get a little earbud, and off we go. The music is there. But over the years, I've also found that I love the first few notes of Clair de Lune by Debussy. Takes me someplace. Ravel's Bolero. I love Bach and Beethoven and Brahms. And so it could be classical music, it could be jazz, it could be rockabilly, bluegrass. There's music, our music, the music that lights you up. I'm encouraging you to keep that music live in your life as much as possible. One of the great things we do as human beings is make music, and make music together, which we model in this church. And when the choir's singing to hold us, and we all sing together, and the rafters start to shake, that's about as good as it gets for me. And I hope it is for you too. So it's going to be a tough few months. I highly recommend you get your car radios on, you get your music going at the house, and whenever you feel too many feeds coming in on your phone or your iPad, just crank the music up. Get into a good place, because when this night is over, we will have work to do regardless of what the results are going to be of these next few months. But that we're living in an anxious culture does not need a lot of explanation, but I'm going to focus on a couple of things this morning because I wrote something that I sent to the Village Voice Wednesday, and hopefully they'll print it. So far, I'm on a streak. But two of the things that are coming at us right now that I think are adding to the anxiousness is religious conformity, the idea that there could actually be such a thing. You know, when I look at the planet with 8 billion people, it seems to me that that train's already left the station. It's not possible. And for those in this country that would like to make Christianity the law of the land, I'm thinking, really? You had 2,000 years to make it the religion of the universe, and so far we've failed. Not that it's a bad religion, but the idea that with 8 billion people we can have a conforming idea about the mystery of being human, and then a communal idea of how we're supposed to approach this mystery, what we say, what we sing, what we pledge our lives to, I don't see it happening. The other thing that's raging right now is the idea of sexual conformity. Again, there's 8 billion of us. And anybody that pays any attention to science whatsoever knows that human sexuality is just about as complex a thing as you can possibly imagine. And the hopes that we'll all be born into column A or column B, that train has also left the station. Finally, praise the Lord. So this is what I wrote, and bear with me for a moment. Well, first of all, they only give me 500 words, right? And so I was writing about religious conformity. I got to like 491. Oh, right. I'll have to save sexual conformity for next week. I'm sure I'll have 500 words to say about that too. So this is what I wrote. I said, religious conformity. Experts estimate that there are now 8 billion humans on the planet. Religious conformity seems impossible to me, yet in our anxious culture, some believe that we must. Our culture is now clinically anxious with an all-or-nothing mentality. And you know what I mean by that. I didn't have to explain it. It's like if everybody on this side of that church says, yeah, we know everything there is to know about it, and y'all are stupid. Or, no, you got all the right answers, and you're deplorable. That's not going to get us anywhere because there's so much to decipher, so much to hold on to. But there are scores of Christian denominations in Los Angeles County alone. I had this book I brought with me. It's up there. It's a book, a handbook on all the denominations of religion in the United States. It's the 9th edition. I've had all 9, and I love them because they actually go and ask each religion, what do you say about yourself? What's unique about who you are? But then when I got to the point that there's scores of Christian denominations in Los Angeles County alone, not churches, denominations, scores of denominations. So I asked the question, will we substitute with the Beatitudes, the 10 Commandments? There's 2 sets of those, by the way. How about creeds? There are almost as many of those as there are religions on the planet. So I would give anything to be in the room when they really try to make this happen. Because my questions become, will the Mormons be happy with Methodism? Will the Catholics be content if the Jehovah's Witnesses write the national rules? What about the various Baptist versions or the United Church of Christ, not to mention Jews and Buddhists and Muslims? Will humanists, agnostics, and atheists be exiled or burned at the stake again? Take a pause here. I take a systems class every month with a brilliant Lutheran minister. I sit on Zoom with about 35 or 40 other ministers, rarely another Unitarian Universalist, but it happens occasionally. But we actually study the human brain, the nervous system. Where in the brain does memory reside? What do we do with the prefrontal cortex? How do we control our amygdalas? Where does all this work and how are we wired? And so part of what we study, besides systems theology, is family systems and the system of being human. And this is what he shared. And by the way, he's retiring now because I think after years as a Lutheran minister, he's really a closeted Unitarian Universalist. But this is what we learned. Science tells us that for life to continue to evolve, all newly developed forms of togetherness ultimately must be in service of a more enriched individuality and not the other way around. Goes on, since the emergence of the earliest self-producing life forms, a critical principle of evolution has been that as new forms develop, life evolves in the direction of its strengths by preserving a balance between togetherness and individuality. So the question comes, and this is the question we asked in our class, will science now be banned in order to be able to do some sort of forced conformity? Because religious conformity says if you don't conform, then you can't get to heaven. Or worse. Oh my gosh. But also we learned that emotional pressure can create a feeling that if you're not willing to agree, threats arise to separate or even throw out the nonconformer. So in that book of religious denominations, what jumped off the pages to me is that, and I didn't realize this, and you may not have either, do you know that there's 9 forms of Presbyterianism? Currently in the United States, there's 11 types of Methodism. Even the Catholics that I grew up with, I think there's 5 now. There's the Eastern Orthodox, there's the Russian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Roman Catholic, and Maronite, just to name a few, because there's also an Asian Catholicism, which I haven't studied yet. Buddhism, one of my favorites, I think that's 4 now. There's Zen, there's Japanese, there's Tibetan, at any rate, I would pay any amount of money to be in that room when those that decide they want to create a national religion. You think we got problems today? Let's just be in that conversation when that takes place. That's scary enough. It is flabbergasting to me that we would, after all these years, consider the mystery to be such that how can 8 billion people be created on this planet? The planet survived hurtling through space at 65,000 miles an hour for however long it's been, 4-something billion years. And yet this divine presence expects all 80 billion to be identical and yet still grow. And science tells us that's not possible. Growth comes from being individuals and playing to our strengths. And one of the things that I shared, which I'm a little nervous about, is that in this course we learned the following quote. It comes from Ed Murray, who was one of the great studies of family systems, and he said, "The herding instinct in a chronically anxious family like America upsets the balance by encouraging the force of togetherness and smothering the force of individuality. It does so by reversing the direction of adaptation from strength, and it winds up organizing its existence around the least mature, the most dependent, or the most dysfunctional members of the culture." That's heavy. And it's scientific. Well, what I kept thinking during this class is what the miracle is we have here together in the Unitarian Universalist tradition. The idea that we're not afraid of each other to come with our own imaginings of what the mystery might really entail. And we know that no two of us imagine the exact same way. So how we get 8 billion people to sing from the same song sheet when it's life or death or heaven or hell at stake does not seem possible. So I'm suggesting to you that we really have nothing to fear from these two anxious moments in our culture because they're non-starters before they begin. And I'm not trying to steal Steve Rittenmeyer's thunder because I love the fact that he gave us this course on separation of church and state, and he's planning a full course in the fall about Christian nationalism. And believe me, the dangers of them not being able to do this are also very real. Because I can imagine the temper tantrums that may exist somewhere in the country where people are willing to get violent over the fact that they failed. But how can you not fail if we've already got 21 types of Methodism? What's warming to me as a Unitarian Universalist and grateful after wandering the religious desert like Moses and the Hebrews for 40 years, to find a place where we actually enjoy our diversity, where we thrive on our diversity, and we're here together for a moment in our time. We create a place that's safe for the moment for us all to gather. Not that it's safe outside, I get that. And it's not to say that we don't have any fear, righteous fear about temper tantrums, about the failure of not being able to create sexual conformity or religious conformity. It's real. But as Rumi said, this night will pass, and then we will have work to do again. Because this church renews its vigor every time we see a new congregation. And we did that today, by the way. Another member joined the church this morning, and it's just, they can't keep us from growing because the idea of being able to come in wherever you are on your journey, own it, state it, and be safe is a rare commodity in this world today. You know, I grew up being Catholic, and I mean, you could be ridiculed or second class just for being a woman, having a divorce, losing a child in miscarriage, for goodness. That's like, you know, oh, well, you must have done something wrong. Not to mention the other great sins of terminating a pregnancy or divorcing. But my point is simply this. We have this opportunity here among us to hold each other, to hold those who are on their way in a comfort zone. And we need not despair about all the challenges to this happy thing that we've got, because they're real and they're going to keep coming. And I'm not sure why that is. I really am anxious to write about sexual conformity because I've also got a new book called, well, it's called Anam Cara, and it's by the poet John O'Donohue. And the words translate into Celtic wisdom as soul friend. And he writes in his book that everybody needs a soul friend, someone who is absolutely honest with you, that you're safe with, that will speak the truth of you to you, etc. But he also goes on to say that sexual intimacy is sacred. Now, I'm anxious to put that title on something and see where that takes me, because I think we've lost that idea that each of us is sacred, that who we love is a sacred intimacy, and that how we believe in the mystery, how that changes over time, that's so highly personal. You can't legislate that. But I didn't say things like, I think substituting the Ten Commandments for the U.S. Constitution might be un-American, because I don't want my essay to get torched. And I really do appreciate being able to write every week. But I'm also torn from writing another article that might just say, I apologize to all of you that are offended by what I write. If you have found one of these 1,100 denominations that lights you up, makes you feel good about yourself, and gives you a direction to live your life, I couldn't be happier for you. I'm not writing for you. What I'm writing for is the 6 billion people whom too many ministers say are going to be denied heaven, or worse, suffer eternal torture and damnation in burning fires for all eternity. That whole idea breaks my heart. And that people are actually sitting, listening to this message and wondering about the nephew that just came out, or the sister that loves another woman. For me, the world is too fragile, too dangerous, just on its own terms, to add this element of recrimination and separation as human beings. It's horrible, purely horrible, because frankly, if any two human beings can find each other and find love in each other and then have sacred intimacy together, wow. There's 8 billion of us and you found yours. Score. But I've also worried, of course, if they'll start reversing all the other laws in the world where we can't marry who we want, that I can't perform same-sex marriages, that I can't baptize the children of a gay couple. And I was concerned this week because my beloved Catholic Church, who still owns a little piece of my heart, allowed something to be printed that was just awful. I won't bore you with it, but it was a backwards leap into the world of sexual judgment, which I find inappropriate. So I want to remind you again about what we have here. And I know, I'm like you too. I like to know everything that's going on in the world, but sometimes I've just had enough for the moment. Some of you have had enough, period, but I don't want you to despair. We've been through all of this before. We're going to be through all of this again, because that's the nature of being human. And there's not few of us being born. There's more of us. So I can't wait to hear that we've hit the 9 billion threshold. And that's going to make these objectives even more Herculean about trying to insist on conformity, either spiritually or sexually. But I know it's tough in the meantime, and it is scary a little bit. But we know who we are. We know what we are becoming, and we know that we are creating a really wonderful place to do this. While I'm still here with the microphone, I want to thank everybody that made Friday such a huge success. I want to thank our auctioneer, our new one, who was lovely and fun. All of you for raising the money by gifting the things that you cherished for others to enjoy, gifting your services for others to enjoy, gifting your boat rides and dinners for others to enjoy. Thank you very much for that. It was a wonderful evening. But I will tell you, I sat there most of the night looking at the diversity of our congregation and how wonderful it is to see us bringing friends or recalcitrant relatives into just tasting the joviality of being Unitarian Universalist. Don't worry about what we're preaching just yet. Come on in and enjoy a good meal and watch everybody laugh and enjoy each other's company, which we did. I don't have the number, but I'm sure it was pretty good. We raised probably a lot of money, and again, that's to the generosity of being a free church with free people here to enjoy it. And it's pretty remarkable. But I also want to close with something I heard. I didn't hear this but I heard that it was said to me, and I'm glad I didn't hear it in the moment, but something to the effect that this was my church. And I want you to understand, this is not my church. I serve this church. This is a collective effort. We don't exist without all of us doing what we can. But I also enjoyed, every time I hear that, being at an installation of one of my colleagues. It was big church, Unitarian, huge church. And there were hundreds and hundreds of people in it. And then the person that was giving the charge to the congregation got the microphone and she said, and she witnessed all the ministers, we all lined up in our robes and our vestments and everything. And she said, I want you to understand that this church does not belong to them. And you can see everybody in the congregation kind of go, yeah. And then she said, but it doesn't belong to you either. And you can see everybody kind of go, what just happened? And she said, this congregation belongs to all the people who are on their way. Let's own that. Let's remember to create that atmosphere where we are free to love and learn and inquire about our own journey so that we can live these chapters of our lives with absolute faithfulness, integrity, and joy, and not let anything take that from us, ever. But the road may get a little bumpy. Keep your transistor radios with you, or your phones, or your iPads. Listen to the music. Keep the faith, and we will survive.